Node.js, the Cloud Foundry, Make environment, okay, all this setup, I should be in a position to do the development, okay, for my relevant application. So I'll just close this. Okay, let me just close this and restart, I guess. Now we would be starting with applications development. So till now we were going with applications development using Business Application Studio. So now as we have configured the application local for the local development environment as well, let's start with something on the local environment. And it's the same one, okay? I mean, in the real Business Application Studio as well, you would be able to follow the same thing. Okay, so what I'll do is, okay, let me just okay, now I would be just going in my BTP terminal. I'm expecting it to get started at least. Yeah, it's working, it seems. Yeah, so I am in my particular folder. Now I want to generate my project for the end-to-end application development. Okay, so what I'll do is, like for any sort of project, we ideally go with CDS in it. I'll just say CDS in it, BTP backend. The center. Okay, and it would generate a project. Now I'll just go in that particular project saying CD BTP B employee, and I'll just say CDS watch. So this is anyway something that we already know. So it works in the same direction. Now what we want next is we want a set of application to be prepared. So let's just say what we are looking for. We want a UI application. Okay. We want a UI application with a draft functionality for employee and department. So we want a functionality for an employee and department, which we would be using for the purpose of a employee dashboard maintenance. Okay. So let's just say I am going over here, and here I am saying I want to generate a data model. Okay, sorry, my bad. It's a new file. I'll just say data model.cds. Let's just say I would be giving a namespace. So I'll just say btp.j for July. Anything you can give. And here entity. So, okay, one more thing. So why it is not giving us the plugin? I'll just say in the extension, there is already a setup for a CDS extension pack. Okay, so this is my CDS language support provided by SAP. Yeah. Now can you see? I mean, many a time this plugin might not behave that sensibly. So you can just anytime go and disable and enable those plugins. So it would just start working the way it should. So I want to create an entity. So I'll just say entity I want to create for some sort of employee registry, for example. Okay. And here in this entity, as we have already learned, I want the ID, the user ID of that, and the component as well. So I'll just say using. These are the two aspects we want to use, and I'll just say CUID and managed. And we want few things. I want a name of that, which says, for example, a string. And I also want some sort of email ID of the user to be maintained. Okay, and I want a department to be also maintained. So for example, I am giving it as a 255 for now, but I want that my application, okay, should be able to maintain the employee and department both. So I would need a separate entity using which I would be able to maintain the department as well. So I'll just say entity, and I want to maintain the department. And here ID would be getting generated automatically, but here I am giving the name of it, which says it's a string. Okay, now what I would like to have is as this department, okay, this name can anytime change, but let's just say my earlier department name was IT, it got changed to let's just say IT General or any sort of cloud technologies, anything. So this name can change. So this name change, I have to keep on updating it over here. But instead, if I map it to ID, then there are no chance that it would get updated. So what I'll do is I'll just say, I'll just specify an association which says association to one department. Okay. So I just created an association to department. Same way, if I want to get multiple employees, I'll just say employees association to many employee registry on is employees dot id equal to employees dot department equal to $self. So I created one association that in an employee can be belonging to one department, but one department can have multiple employees. Okay. Now I want that this service should also be exposed. So what I'll do is I would create a service out of this new file, I can say, and I'll just say employee-service.cds. Okay. Now to generate the file, I'll just say generate the service. I can say using BTP dot, I guess it was J as a BJ from where we would be selecting it from. I'll just say data model. Okay, it's a data mod I name it as. Yeah, doesn't make any difference. I just name the file as data mode, so we just use it as data mode. Now I want to use a service. So I'll just create a service which says employee services. Okay. Now, after generating this service, I would like to have a couple of things. I want to expose this employee over here, and I want to expose this department as well. So what I'll do is I'll just say entity employees as select from my bj.employee registry. Same goes over here. I'll just say entity department as select from my bj.department. Now, next thing I would like to have over here is So when I say entity, okay, let me just show you something on real time, then it would be easy. So it just open the service. If I just say metadata, you would be able to see the metadata as well. As you can see, we don't have any sort of functionality which are disabled. It means my employees are having a capability of creation, updation, deletion. For example, I want this department to be a read only. So I can say @read only. So no one would be able to change the value of department. I mean, in the department entity, no one would be able to insert or update any data. Instead, let's just say I want to, that's a master data and I don't want any application. Instead, I want it to be maintained via database only. So what I can do is I can just say read only department. So if I just go over here and just say, then what you can find over here is department has a deletable, insertable and updatable as a false. So no one would be able to change this. Okay, so that is for department. Now I want that this employee doesn't have any sort of capability restriction for now, but this is an old syntax. Okay, in case you want to specify what all capability does it have, you have to, along with employee, you have to specify certain annotations. When I say annotation, you would say anything that start with like in above CDS here also are called annotation. If I just say control space, you would find multiple things. So I would be going with the capabilities. In the capabilities, you would be required to specify multiple things, saying I want a insert restriction, saying insert restriction, this would be auto inserted. I do not need to specify that. And then I want it to be insertable. Same with, let's just say, I want update functionality also to be enabled. And I want it to be updatable as well. So I'll just say updatable. And same goes with a delete restriction. Okay, so I want it to be deletable as well. So if I just go over here and check. So if we don't specify any restriction, that is the old syntax. Instead, SAP says always try to specify the capability which an entity is having explicitly. Okay, so here in employee, you would be finding insertable, updatable, deletable as a true. In case you don't want to give certain capabilities, that employee should not be maintained from here, it should come from something else, and here everyone should only be able to update or delete those. You can also set it likewise. If you don't specify that, it would be false by default. Okay, so now as we do have this particular capability, but one thing we can say is this particular service that we are getting is connected to a DB. Okay, it's database and it's a in memory. What is a database? It is a memory database. Now, what do I mean by in memory database? It means that if you are trying to insert some data and if you just stop the service and restart it, then again your data would be gone. That is called in memory database. Okay, but now I don't want an in memory database. I want the data to be persisted. So what I'll do is I'll just say Control C and I'll just say I want to persist it to a let's just say SQLite database. So what I'll do is like we were saying CDS deploy to HANA. Same way we would be saying SQLite. Same way earlier we were calling that CDS deploy double dash to HANA. Now we are saying SQLite because SQLite is a local database. And I'll just say a name of it. So I can say empdb.db. So file name should have an extension called .db. I'll just enter. Can you see it just generated a file called employee.db? Now I want this to be used. So what I'll do is I'll just say SQLite Studio. So we are just preparing a backend service, then we would be proceeding with the UI development as well. Okay. Now I want to add one more database. So this was old one, which I don't need. So I'll just say remove this. I want to add a database. It's a SQLite. I'll just open this, go back, go back. 30 July, this EMPDB, search for it and just say OK. And once after doing this, just say connect from here. This button was there. Can you see? Now I think you would be able to recall what we had already learned. When I say I am generating a table, when I don't specify CDS persistent skip or exist, it would generate a table. What would be the name of table? It would be BTP underscore J underscore this. Can you see that? It's same for both of them. Okay, so I do have a database. So now if I just say CDS watch, earlier I was getting that it's an in-memory database. Now if I just say CDS watch, can you see? It is no longer an in-memory database. It is a database which is coming from SQLite DB. Looks good. I'll just stop this. Now I do have a sufficient information for my application to work. But one more thing we are forgetting is we said with draft functionality. So I want a draft functionality also to be enabled. And when I say a draft mechanism, what does that mean? It means that my employee, if someone is changing the data, but they have not saved that, then it should be auto saved after each change. That is called draft functionality. So what I'll do is I'll just say CDS watch, and I would be proceeding my first capability of UI saying enable draft functionality. And for me to give any such capability, all I need is a annotations. And for annotations in the cap CDS, we do have keyword called annotate. So I'll just go in my service, and here I'll say after employee, I'll just say annotate employee with, I can say odata.draft enabled. If I just copy this, and I would be doing the same thing for department. But I want both of this table to be draft enabled. Okay, anyway, this is a read only, so we can omit this. That's also possible. But let's just have the draft functionality enabled for both of them. So in future, let's just say you want a dedicated application for department, then also it would be possible. So if I just go over here, can you see? It just generated certain properties. Is active entity. So each employee has two copy, or I can say each employee has two copy. One is active copy, which would be with a ID. So for example, employee ID 123 has a real saved copy. When I say is active entity, it is a boolean which says false. So it means it has a draft copy as well. This combination is a primary key. Okay. It means I can have a draft copy of an employee, which is something which I am just editing right now. It's not saved. And if it's false is if it is false, then it's a draft. If it's true, then it's a non-draft. Okay. And same goes with the department. So I am able to enable the draft capability. I do have a draft administrative data, which uniquely identify that who is the person who created this draft and what are the changes and who is currently processing it. Okay. Whenever I say I am enabling a draft, it also creates certain table. So if I want to generate this table, so what we were doing in case of a HANA, we were going in run configuration, we were saying bind to the database, or we were saying CDS deploy to HANA, right? Same way we would be saying CDS deploy to SQLite. And again, I would be writing it into the same. I'll just say EMP DB DB enter, it would delete out all the earlier copy and now redevelop this. Okay, if I just disconnect and reconnect this, can you see it just generated draft tables for this? For employee, there is a draft table. So these days you might also be hearing the same stuff for RAP application in ABAP environment on premise, on ABAP on cloud. Many people have started working on RAP application, RESTful ABAP programming model. There also we do have a draft capabilities. And it also depends on the same architecture. Each table would have a draft table associated with it. For example, employee and the department and the certain administrative data for that draft. And same way, we would have a service which would also be exposed as a draft administrative data. So this is how it would be. SAP is going with symmetrically along all the technology it is releasing. Okay. So I do have a department, for example. Now what I want is I want a UI application to be created on top of that. Okay, so ultimately now we are going with a UI application generation. We do have a database prepared however we want, and now we would be going with a UI. So what we would be doing is I would be willing to start with a UI application. So I'll just go over here in my extension. So as I mentioned, for you to work on your local development for CAP, what you would need? You would need a SAP CDS language support. For you to work on a Fiori application generation from the same Visual Studio Code, you have to generate SAP Fiori tools. So just search for SAP Fiori tools over here in the extension. If you want new extension as well, you can say SAP and you would get all the extension relevant to SAP. If you want specific to SAP Fiori, you can say SAP Fiori and you would get that. So same way for SAP, you would need a SAP Fiori tool relevant extension, and we would be using this Fiori tool extension for guided development. So this is something that we are going to use. How I can do that? I'll just say terminal, I'll just say go on the command palette. I'll just say view command palette. And here you would find a application generator. So if you just say Fiori, you would find all the component relevant to Fiori that has been installed. You can say open application generator. Okay, and here now what we want to use is we want to generate the list report. So I'll just say list report object page. I'll just say next. What would be my data source? So I want a UI project to be generated from my CAP project. Can you give me the path of the CAP project? So I'll just say yes, open this. And I want it to be generated from this CAP project, BTP BE employee. I'll just select that. Now it would get the service. So what is my service? It is employee service. Okay, one more thing we just left out. Okay, so I guess let's just complete that first. So for the Fiori element based on OData v2, for us to generate that, what we would need? We need a proxy. I can say CDS OData v2 proxy. This is something we are looking for. Let's copy this. And we would need one more file, server.js. Okay, now I'll just say I want a file called server.js, and the proxy would be triggered using this. So I'll just copy this, save this. Let's just try to run the service last time. So it just enabled the proxy. If you say it, just say proxy rewrite rule created. Just say enter. And now I do have a V2 service as well. Now I want cut, and now I want a UI application to be generated. So I'll just say view command palette, Fiori application generator. List report, say next. Data source would be a local cap project. The project folder would be this. OData service would be this employee service. I'll just go next. I want an employees application to be generated. I'll just go next. I'll just say BTP UI employee. I'll just say it employee administration. I want to do a Fiori Launchpad configuration. I'll just say next. I'll just say employee admin manage. Okay, and I'll just say finish. Now it should generate my UI application. Now where this UI application would actually be placed. Okay, so when we are having a backend project and we are using it, then this backend project would have a APP, which we also can use for app router, and this can also contain your application. So this is somewhere where your local project that is getting generated would be placed.
Sumit,
Mm-hmm.
I have a doubt like the same thing we did from the business application studio also, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that same entity, the service we can call even in the Fiori also from the BTP.
Yeah, you can call it, and you have to specify the, I can say you have to select an option called create an application with a OData service. So currently we have both the things available in the same place. So we are saying create it using local cap project. But when you are going over here, you are getting multiple option, out of which one of the option is create it using an I can say,
It's in Visual Studio, whereas in the
yeah,
BTP, I'm asking.
yeah. But if you see, I do have a two options. Either you can directly connect to OData service, one option. When you are, and here you can specify the OData service URL, that application server URL, you would be able to log in using your user ID and password, and you can use it. Or you can say connect to a system, and here you would be able to generate a system with what kind of system it is. So it's a ABAP environment on BTP, then this is an ABAP BTP. So here CF is something which is not there. So you have to go with this. Connect to an OData service, and you have to provide the service URL.
Means when you are creating the service from the business application studio also, we need to select the connect to OData service only.
No, ultimately there are couple of ways with which you can generate the UI application. First one, if your backend is on BAS where you generated and deployed,
Yes.
so it would have a service URL. So in case you want to generate, I can say, in case you want to generate a UI application in the BAS only business application studio, but with a deployed application, then you can say either connect to a system, because in BAS you would get an option to connect to Cloud Foundry also as a system, or you can say connect to an OData service. So these are two options which you can use in case you want to go with a deployed service.
Connect to OData service is an on-premise related part only, right?
No, no, that's not the thing. So connect to on data service can be any OData service available, which is exposed and ready to be consumed.
Okay. Okay.
So it's based on the service URL you can connect over here. So let's just say I do have a local service running over here. I can provide local host 4004 that was running, and I can directly connect it over here as well. So if I just say CDS, okay, not over here. I'll just show you separately. So that's
Oh,
you when you provide it over here, that's one of the ways. Uh, Second way would be, let's just say you do have your backend generated in BS, you have not deployed, it's a local project for now. As a part of same project, you also want to generate a UI. So you can also have an option called local cap project in your BAS as well. You would get the same set of drop down in your business application studio in the same repository where you are going with the development in the full stack mode. Full stack development is also one of the development space. There you can go with a use a local cap project and you would be able to connect it to that. Third option would be you are in your BE backend is a BAS, and this particular UI that you are generating is via VS Code. Then you have to go with a connect to a OData service. Fourth option would be you have your backend in a VS Code that has been generated. Okay, I can say backend generated, and now you want to generate a UI. So you can go with a local cap project, or you can also have your backend service which you are generating from backend. You can deploy it using CF deploy, and then you can consume your generate to your UI also from a VS Code, and here you can say connect to OData service, because ultimately whenever you are saying CF deploy, it would be I not via BS but via VS Code itself. It would be deployed on your BTP, and if it's deployed on your BTP, it's nothing but a separate OData service you can connect to anytime. Any of the alternative, our ultimate motive is to connect to my OData service. Now, why I am choosing this particular option right now is whenever you are going with this option saying backend you have generated and you are going with a local cap project, you would get a real time, you would be able to see the change real time, saying I am adding one more annotation and a filter should get generated. So you would be able to see, okay, the UI application is getting auto refresh and your filter is getting generated. So that sort of behavior you would be able to see, and it would be easy to understand. So I'm going via this. It's a full stack development we are just going with.
okay.
Okay. Now, so here we just generated the app. So if you just see, it just says application got generated. And the moment application got generated, you would be able to see it in a app over here in the BTP UI. Okay. Now I can simply go the same way and I just say CDS watch. But now if you see, it is connecting to multiple informations. It's saying app services.cds. This is also it is connecting to. And this is responsible for your UI service. So if I just go over here and just remove this, can you see it is saying web application is also available? And if I just click on this, then it would give me an employee administration over here, and you would be able to see an empty application initially. So you have your application up and running. So now as you do have create, update, delete, everything enabled, you are able to see the create and delete everything, every button over here. And why this editing status is coming? Because my system is a draft enabled. My backend service is draft enabled. So this is an empty application we just started with. Now I want to learn the UI development. So that's where we are coming from and what we want to learn. I would be explaining you certain scenarios, but in future as well, there are plenty of things that would keep on coming. Okay, so I'll just say SAP UI5 demo kit. Always refer this. If you just go over here, search for any application you want to generate. So I'll just go over here in the documentation which says list report, how to use Fiori element, list report and object page, list report elements. I want to generate a filter, or let's just say I want to go with this. I want to generate a table like this. So currently in my application, yeah, over here, I do have a table which is empty. There are no visible column. I want to click on, once I click on this, I would be able to see. Okay, set of annotations. Second. So there are this record type, UI data field and everything. See, this is XML annotation. Same way for most of them, they have also given us the annotation that we would be using for cap based annotations as well. So if I just say this sales area, can you see? It just say, okay, if you want to go with a ABAP based development, you can this is how you can generate the facet. If you want to go with the cap, this is how you can generate the facets as well. What they are going with, they are saying annotate, then they are providing the name of the service, they are providing the name of the entity with @ is for annotation. UI is something that which particular library you want to use, and then you would be specifying the annotation, its relevant detail, and then it would get generated for each and every component. Okay, so let's just start with one such component and say I am over here, and in my employee, I want to now provide the annotation for my employee service, and I want to annotate the employee. But here I'll just say with, because that's what this particular standard block is also saying. And then you would be able to provide any annotation. So this particular annotation has two components. When I say with @, then I can provide all the list of annotation. All the property level information you want to specify would go in the curly bracket. Okay, for example, if I just go in setting, what I can see over here is it is saying department underscore ID, EML underscore ID, but that's not the good way of specifying that. Okay, so in case I want to provide any property level information such as labels or anything, I'll just provide it in this curly bracket. So I'll just say control space and you would be able to find all the properties. For example, I want to go with name. So I just say name, and here I want to specify title. And here I want to give the title as, for example, name, like this. Okay, sorry, it won't be a colon because it's a property level annotation. In property, we don't have a colon. We are ideally not specifying that. And it's ultimately also checking. If you see, in case we are missing some sort of thing, it would also keep on suggesting us in real time. So if I just see, this application is getting reloaded, and that's why we are going with a embedded service development. So it just got changed. So same way we can rename it for this too as well. I want to give a title to my department as well. Okay, so we do have a labels provided correctly over here. Okay, Now what I want to do is, along with this editing status, I want one more filter. For example, now as it is not a property level but header level information, I'll be just specifying at the rate, then I'll just say control space. If you just say control space, you would get all the libraries where you can get the annotations from. Okay, so I want to specify UI. So you would just say UI and curly bracket, you can specify what kind of UI annotation you want. So in UI, we do have multiple things. I am interested in selection fields. In the selection field, you would be specifying, okay, which field you want to make the selection field. So I'll just say, I want to make my department as a selection field. So you would be just specifying this particular department because we would be going based on the annotations. And we would be going based on the service metadata as well. In metadata, this data model has department as it's an association, it has a department ID. That's what we are specifying. Can you see? We are getting a department over here and that just become filter because we just specified an annotation. So from a CAP project, we are generating the UI application. Here you would be finding it as an empty now. We would be giving a value list as well in some time. Now, I want to say create. Okay, when I say create, if I just go inside, it's an empty right now. That's why we are not able to see anything. We have to do some sort of designing for it to be visible. But first, let's just design the table. Okay, for us to design the table along with the selection field, what we would need? We would need some sort of line item, like what all thing I would like to be visible. So this is for my filter bar. Now I want my uh, table column also to be visible. So I'll just say line item. In line item, we can have plenty of things that we can specify. If you just say control space, you would find that whether you want to provide the field as a data field. So what it is nothing but a UI data field which shows the single information. If I want to go with data field for action, the action is not tied to a data value. So it is a action. It would show you a button. If you want to show it as a URL, what sort of information you want to show it as? We want to show the plain information. So I'll just say data field. The moment you say it, it would give you whole record. All you have to bind is the value, and value is nothing but a property. So for example, I want the name to be visible. So I'll just say name. I'll just say again one more data field, and I want the email ID also to be visible. And I want, let's just say department also to be visible. If you just go back to the application, it's getting refreshed because we saved this. So the moment you save, it would refresh each and everything associated with that. Can you see it has now got this data? It has now got this column available. But here we don't have the department information still available. So what we would be doing is we would like to have some sort of departments in my value list available over here. So first I would bind a value list to this. Okay, so I'll just say I would like to have a this particular property, or I can say department. Okay, I want the department information to have some sort of a value list assigned. So I'll just go and say department, whichever I do have over here. Okay, or I can just extend this as well because this is my single department which can have multiple informations. So this department, I'll just put a round bracket. So this department has a title. Now, after the title, let's just say I want to provide some sort of a common annotation because common contains ideally the value list and all the stuff. So I want to provide some sort of a value list. Now this value list ideally ask you like if you are planning to provide me the value help, where I'll be getting the value from. So these are all the XML annotation converted into ABAP CDS, and they are also converted into CAP CDS. It's the same terminology, collection path. Okay, so what would be your collection path? That's what we have to specify. So my collection path would be whatever this department is containing, I want that information to be visible. Okay, and now this information should have a label. So how the value help should be visible? It should say it as a departments. That's what it should be showing it as a. Now, whenever you are defining a value help, you would also have some sort of parameters. It is not getting the parameters. Okay, it would be part of the. Okay, sorry, my bad. It was part of the value list itself, and we are just providing it in outside. So here you would be specifying the parameters. So I would be specifying the parameters. So what sort of parameter you want to specify? So I'll just say I can have multiple parameters. Whether you want to give some sort of constant data, whether you want to show the information in a display only field. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, I'll just be back. Just a moment. Okay, yeah. So I'm back. Yeah, sorry. So now we want that what sort of parameter we want to specify. So if I just go over here, whether we want it for filtering purpose, the input, output. So what we want is we want the data that should be visible. So I'll just say value list parameter out and where it should be binded to. So when I say the local data property is nothing but a property of my this entity. The entity on which I am specifying, for example, these employees. So on my employees, whenever the user is selecting from the filter, whenever the user is selecting a department from the value help, to which particular data it should be passed as a filter. That is called local data property. Local, it means the property of this particular entity. So I'll just say I want it to be passed in my department ID. Okay, and where it should be mapped to. So that would always be a string. So value list, it means the collection path that you specified over here, for example, department would have some property that would be capable or which would be matching with this department ID. So I can say, yes, it's nothing but a ID. So ID property of this is matching with this. Okay, so that's what we specified, value list parameter out and department ID. Okay, now we want one more property. I'll just say what should be displayed to user. So I'll just say this property should only be display only purpose. So I'll just specify the value list property. So in the value list, we do have one more property called name that should be the something that we would be displaying to user. So I'll just say save. I'll just go back. And if I just open this application, in the department, if I just see, you would be able to find some sort of table with an ID and name column, right? But we don't have any data. So if I just want to pass some sort of data, anything, so I can say generate GUID online because we want to pass some sort of data just as a visual purpose. I'll just copy this and I can pass it over here as well. So in the department, I want to maintain some data. I'll just say plus, and I can say cloud department, for example. I'll just add one more entry, which says another GUID. And here I can say IT department. Just say OK. If I just go back, if you just say refresh, if you just open this, can you see both of this information are now visible? Okay, now how we can get rid of this ID as well, that's something we would be seeing. Okay, that we would be learning definitely. Now, let's just say you don't want this sort of pop-up because department can be 1, 2, 5, 10, maximum 15. How many department we can have in a company? So I can say we want that particular information also as a drop down. So we do have a option called value list with fixed values. And here value list parameter with fixed value is something that we are specifying. I think we should ask us for some sort of true or false. Maybe it would be taking it as a true by default. Let's see. So this is getting refreshed. Can you see it just got converted into a drop down? This is how it is visible. Okay, so it is visible like this. Now I want to, so we'll keep it like this for now. In I guess tomorrow, I mean, we would be able to convert this to something. But yeah, as we do have a few minutes, we would also be going with a object page generation. So at least we would be able to, we would be in a position to create something. So currently, when I say create, I'm able to see the page, but it's empty. It does not have anything available. It's totally empty. So I want to have something at least in a position where we would be able to create something. Okay, so what I'll do is I have to generate some sort of information in in terms of, okay, so let's just say I am not having any sort of count over here which says how many employees I do have. When I say create, it's saying me new object. It's not able to identify like what I am trying to create and everything. So for that, along with over here, we would again be starting with some sort of header parameters. So I can say object page designing. Okay, in the object page designing, we would be specifying some sort of header info, for example. Okay, and what it asks for? It asks for a type name and type name plural. So it's totally English grammar. Type name plural is more than one, like where I can see more than one employees, I can say on the object page. So if the moment you say plural employees, that's something that would be visible on the grid. On the object page, a single name would be visible. Okay. We would be enhancing it as well going forward. Now I want to split my visual over here in multiple information. For example, I do have set of data. I do have a general information which I'll be managing. There are certain managed information created by and everything which my UI application is maintaining by itself by certain aspects. So we want certain general information as well as administrative data. So what I'll be defining is a facets. So in object page, in terms of UI, everything is defined. So can you see employees over here? If I just say create, you would be able to see new employee. Now here the page is empty. I want two set of information, one general information, one administrative information. I'll just go over here and I want those information to be visible. And for that, I would be going with a UI facet. But as I have already specified at the rate UI and in the same curly bracket I'm writing, I'll directly say facets. So as a part of facet, I can have multiple kind of facet. If I just say control space, what kind of facet you want to get created? So I can say a reference facet. So a facet which would be containing a reference to multiple fields. So I'll just say reference facet over here. And I want to give the, let's just say First of all, let's just keep the target as a blank. We would be coming on to that point. Let's just give a unique ID to it. So the ID I would like to give it as a, let's just say default facet, the normal one. And I would like to give some sort of label as well, what it should be visible as. It should be visible as a general. Okay. Now, what should be the target? To what field it should be pointing to? So facet can contain the set of data which are combined in a field group. Okay, so I'll just say, yeah. So currently I don't have anything defined. That's why I'm not getting in the control space. Ideally, target would show you all the information which are generated. I do have header info line and everything. That's why it is showing it. But I want one more thing to be generated called a field group. So I'll just say field group is to group the data. So I'll just say field group. In the field group, the type, I would be specifying what is this field group. So if I want to specify that, I would be just saying hash. In the hash, I'll be just saying, okay, it's a default one. And here in the field group, I want to specify some sort of data. Okay, and what all thing I would like to have it? I would like to have some sort of information saying it should have a data field called name of the employee. It should have one more. It should have one more field called email ID of my employee. It should have one more information called department ID of my employee. Okay, and now after having this information, we would be able to map this. So if I just say control space, can you see this facet's target is now getting generated? So I can say, yes, map this set of information field group which I generated to this first facet. Okay, so this first facet I am expecting to have these three fields. If I just go back to my application, the moment I say create, can you see it as a name, email ID, and department, right? And this department is also showing the values which are there in the selection field, because the fields are mapped, or I can say value list is mapped with a field saying department would always have a value help. I have never said that department only in case of selection field should have a value help. No, it's a property level binding. Okay, and that's why it's visible. Now let's just say I also want certain information also to be visible. So I want one more field group. Okay, so I'll just say field group, and here I'll just specify this is a kind of admin data, and here I would be specifying a property called data, which would have a data field and which would say I want to map it to created at data field for created by, data field for modified at, and data field for modified by. If I just save this information, okay, now I do have the field group, but I have not used it anywhere, right? This field group is, it's standalone. This field group doesn't have any value. I have to map it to a facet. So I'll just say I want one more reference facet, which is referring to my admin data. Okay, and I'll just generate a ID for this. This says admin data just to keep it uniform, or I can say keep it unique. And I'll just map a label to it, and which would say administrative data. If I just save this, Now, if you just go back to your application over here, now if I just go on my create, can you see? It is giving me this information by default, but this is a draft enabled application. Remember? So if I just say I want Sumit, and I can say sumit.aoh@gmail.com, and I want it to be mapped with my department called cloud. Okay. And if I just say this is a draft data which is just saved. So if I just go back, it would say whether you want to keep the draft or let's just say discard. So I'll just say, okay, keep the draft, go back. So it is just showing me, but if I just say show me on draft of this, it is showing, okay, this information is there. This is not real. So if I just go back, I can just say create, and this would now get created. So if I just go back, I can expect in my all data, it should be visible, right? And let's just say I am modifying this. I am saying edit, and I am saying Sumit1 over here. The moment I say tab, it's saying updating draft, draft updated. So if I just go back, I'll just say, okay, keep the draft value. Can you see it is saying all is Sumit1, but I just say, okay, all, but don't show me the draft information, hiding draft. It is showing me the real information. So if I just open this, it says this is the version that you have saved. There is a saved version. And in case you want to save the draft version, what you were doing earlier, this is what you were doing. And the moment I say save, it would be persisted. Now it's no longer a draft, it's a real information. And if I just say all, I would be able to see this.